great number of Cubans still locate their origins in Yoruba and Bantuese, specific ethnic groups from Congo, Zaire, Angola, and Namibia region. These origins from Spain, black slavery to Cuba to replace the exterminated Indians working in the plantations of tobacco and sugar. They brought also their religion, traditions, art, music, dance, and palo, the Spanish term for the religious practice originally of the Congos. Descendants of the various tribes that had been deported from the regions of Central Africa to be sold as slaves in Cuba. From 1920 to 1930, Cuba experienced Afro-Cubanismo, was the first artistic campaign in Cuba that focused on one particular theme, black culture. The movement had a large impact on Cuban music and other expressions of art, building a purely Cuban national identity. Its goal was to incorporate African folklore and rhythm into traditional modes of art. Cuban music has its principal roots in Spain and West Africa, but over time has been influenced by diverse genres from different countries. Afro-Cuban music involves two main categories of music, religious and profane. In Cuba, music, rumba is a generic term covering a variety of musical rhythms. The rumba has its influences in the music brought to Cuba by Africans as slaves by the Spanish colonies. Rhythmically, rumba is based on the 5-stroke pattern called clave and the inherent structure it conveys. Rumba developed in the Cuban provinces of Havana and Matanzas in the late 19th century. As an energetic Afro-Cuban dance, rumba was often suppressed and restricted because it was viewed as dangerous and lewd. In Havana, influences such as American popular music and jazz via the radio were adopted. Son is the major influence style for salsa music and widespread forms of Latin American music. Son traditionally concerns itself with themes like love and patriotism, though more modern artists are socially or politically oriented. The profits made from the global trade of sugar, tobacco, tea and coffee were the major driving force for the transatlantic slave trade and consisted of 3 journeys. The first, the outward passage from Europe to Africa carrying manufactured goods and slaves. The third, the homeward passage carrying sugar, tobacco, rum, rice, cotton and other goods back to Europe. In the middle passage from Africa to South America and Caribbean brought all the African influence in music, religion and traditions from around the continent. All these elements build our Latin identity, expressed in our carnivals and happy personalities.
Tanga, Buroboya!
In 1940, American big bands were trying to play traditional Cuban music, but only Mario Bauza could make it happen. He decided to bring his brother-in-law from La Habana, Frank Grillo, known best as Machito. Machito played a huge role in the history of Latin jazz, as he became the first to use Afro-Cuban rhythms with jazz improvisation. Machito founded the Afro-Cubans Band in 1940, the first jazz band to use trumpets and trombone, adding a new dialect to the vocabulary of jazz and creating something in between the American swing and the Afro-Cuban beat, getting Cuban music into the main street of America. This transformation of jazz wrote the beginning of sensational mambo that later became salsa music.